Good morning. Good. Few people sitting there already. How's everyone going?
Good, it's almost Friday.
Yeah, that's always good. All good. We've got a couple people, I think, still coming, but what we might do is sort of kick off anyway, and if people join late, that's okay. We are working on getting these set up with recordings and stuff to go straight out so that we can hopefully help you guys if you missed the start of it or if you've got anyone who intended to come and they missed it, but we'll go through that. We'll kick off from there. So yeah, again, welcome to one of our monthly product support sessions. We're again trying to do these sort of every month, go through some issues or some features and things that we think are being missed by people, or if we've had a few people coming in with issues to us about a certain thing, we try and raise that so we can help everyone in the same way. So we'll go through a couple of things there and go from there. I've got Michael here as well on the side, but yeah, I think most of you guys know us all now anyway, but we'll go through any questions as we go through. Let me know. I will also have a bit of time at the end for particular questions. We've also set a bit of time at the end for if there's any particular issues you've been having that you wanted to raise. We do pop out in our invite whether you want to send those through beforehand and we can sort of look at something specific for you. Otherwise, yeah, happy to talk about it in the session if there's time as well. But we'll go from there. The meeting is recorded, as I mentioned, so that's all good. Forward here. So the main thing for today is just to do with Lectora integrating with other tools. So first thing I'll look at is to do with the asset library and some of the stuff you can use in there, but then also embedding other tools and other activities and things like that within your Lectora as well. Go through from there. I've got a bit of an agenda there. So yeah, just in general, making the best use of the asset library, what's in there, how you can get to it, what you can use, and then yeah, a little bit more about embedding different types of things, both included in the ELB sort of family, as well as external stuff and how that all works for you as well. So we'll jump straight in on there, starting off with the asset library. So this is a big one. We normally have been pushing a bit more in general, just I think a lot of people don't realize they even have access to it or they haven't used it. There is a ton of stuff in there. We normally pop up that sort of marker saying there's 160 plus million assets all included. So depending on what you're looking for, images, audio, music, videos, as well as things like templates, page examples, not even just Lectora stuff. There's stuff from all different tools in there as well. So showing you where that is and how everything works, we'll go through. And then the best way to use that from within Lectora itself as well. The little sort of panel that pops out. So we can have a look at that. So I'll jump over into my Lectora and just show you where that sort of stuff lives. Jump over in here. Working in Lectora Online today, most of this stuff works the same way, whether you're using online or desktop. And of course, the asset library can be viewed as its own site separately. We're just talking about how that sort of integrates directly with Lectora today. So to make that a bit easier to access stuff, and you can basically chuck stuff straight in, not jumping between browser windows or from your browser to desktop, etc. So we'll jump over here to the project I've got open. I've kicked this project off just with the general sort of theme in the background. I think we've shown those a couple times of where you can start out a new course with a little theme, just to show you quickly where that lives. It's usually the first thing you see if you're making a brand new course, is just one of these. So we've got a bunch of different options here. These technically count as something that sits within that asset library. So you can look at these elsewhere. They're more geared directly for Lectora because it's a Lectora theme or a Lectora template as well. Important thing to note with any of these is you can edit absolutely every aspect of that. So take one of these, for example, this font or this background, these lines, any graphic elements, they're all just objects in Lectora. So you can delete half the lines if you don't like them. You can make the lines red if you do like them. You can sort of move it all around as well. So most of this stuff that we're going to look at today can be just edited directly there within Lectora, which makes that a lot easier for getting something close to what you want and then just tweaking it to suit. Come back over here to just this example. So asset library, when you're within Lectora itself, you go over on your right hand side and you've got this sort of tools area. So if you pop that open, you'll have a couple different options. For Lectora desktop, this will pop open straight as a panel first, and then you choose which one of the options you want. In Lectora Online, it's got these little icons instead. And depending on what you want to work with, you can jump into things like the template library, the stock assets, and some other tools available there. So we'll pop into the assets first, and I'll show you where that lives and what else you can do with that as well once that's there. Pop that open. Okay, so the main stock asset area has a couple different sections, whether you're looking for images and icons and that sort of stuff, or illustrations, whatever you want for images. Stock audio, which includes sound effects, music, a bunch of things like that as well. And then stock videos, which is encompassing a lot of different types of videos, including like 360 video if you're using stuff like that, which we'll have a bit of a look at VR in a second. That's all available in there. So you can click into each one, and they're pretty robust as far as the categories and what you can search for. You can search for anything you want as well, or you can drill it down to a category first and try and get a bit closer to what you're looking at. Things like, sports-based stuff, technology, industry, whatever else you're wanting to look at. There's tons of stuff in there as well. Once you break it down a little further, say we go into this one, you've also got a lot of different filters and things you can go through. So if you really want to fine tune what you're looking for, there's a lot of stuff you can do there, ranging from image type. If you're wanting more illustration, you can sort by vectors or illustrations themselves, as well as photos instead. You can search by different country of origin. So depending on what you're looking at, if it's a computer or something, obviously it may not matter too much where that's from, but if it's things with people involved, you may want a certain look from different areas as well. You can really do a lot of stuff. You can see different examples here. Breaks it right down to orientation, what style of image or format or layout you're looking for. Different types of people options, especially with the photographic sort of stock images. You can really drill it down. Do you just want one person? Do you want two people, but you don't want their faces shown? You can really drill it down, and there's tons of stuff in there as well. Even things like image size, you can break it down if you're looking for something very, very specific. So lots and lots of things you can play around with there with the filters and finding whatever you want from there. Once you find something you want, if I want to pop this to my course, I can simply just click on that first. It'll give me a couple of options of what size I want, particularly. If it's a vector image, so things that are used for things like Illustrator, where you can edit them as well, there'll be an option to pull it out just as an image, but there'll also be the option for the vector file, which, depending on what that is, it can still sit in directly in Lectora, but if it's like an Illustrator file or something and you need to work on it, it'll download that instead, and you can work on that with your own external tools if you need to. I'll just pick one of the examples here, hit download. I think I missed that. Very good. And what that's going to do directly from that side panel that I've just opened, once that's ready, it should sit just directly on the page in the background. So I can close this down and have a look, but you can see on the left-hand side, it's just added that in the background as well. So really quick and easy for adding images in particularly. Same thing works for audio, whatever else you're doing, video. If I jump back to one of the other sections, I can show you that it pretty much looks the same, but you've got the same sort of options for sorting things. So audio is a little bit different. You can search for music versus sound effects, you can search for different genres, all that sort of stuff. Again, breaks it right down into different categories. Check over to videos quickly. 1 second to pop up. Thinking about it, similar to the image version there, you've got different categories there, but this also comes into sort of the composition of it as well. So as I said, if you're doing VR stuff, if you need 360, they have a whole section for that, whether it's the sort of sphere looking thing like you can see in that example, or anyone who has used our VR tool, there's that sort of warped image that you'll see that works for that, for like a 360 view, and you'll learn to recognize those as well. But outside of that, you can sort, again, by tons of different things. If you want just footage of stuff, they've also got backgrounds, which tend to be just more abstract or looping videos, which can sort of sit in the background. So they might be a bit shorter or vague or abstract, depending on what you're looking for. But again, plenty of different things you can play with there. And again, that'll just drop it straight on the page for you when you're done. If I close this completely, you see my image was there that I'm ready for. That was the size I set it at. I can tweak that and play around with it as much as I want. If I need to edit it or do anything with it as well, it is just the same as adding any image to my Lectora. I can then download this, pull it out. If I'm in desktop, it'll just add it to my folder in my course file, so I can pull that out and do whatever I want with it there as well. So depending on what you're working on, you can work through there.
Will, the only thing I've found is things that don't have a background always come up with a white background when they go on. How do I get it with a transparent background if the picture has it in the stock image?
Yeah, so it depends on the asset. I could try and find an example. Depending on what type of asset it is, if it's just an image-based thing, it may be to do with the file type. So usually if you're wanting a transparent background, you'll need it to be a PNG file type. If that image is set up that way properly, the PNG option will be one of those download options versus if you do a JPEG, it'll just put a flat color in the background like a white or something like that. But sometimes it may be that it looks like it's transparent there, but it is actually white in the object as well.
Yeah, when the picture comes up, you usually know if it's should be transparent because it's got ELB on the back.
Yeah. So a lot of those, it's that ELB thing will sort of sit across a lot of them as like a what do you call it, a watermark anyway. So it could be that it is actually an image with a white background, so they put that ELB in the background. But there are definitely some in there that are set to that sort of file type.
I've never been able to get one download without the background.
Yeah, let me just double check if there's. I thought there might have been an option specifically to search for that background, but yeah, we can definitely have a look at that as well. It may depend on each image if you can search for them, depending on what it is as well. So for example, you've got things like your characters, like your little sort of cutout people, they are always set specifically with no background. So it, depending on what you're looking for, it may be just a different place you need to find it as well. So there's also a completely separate section for things like icons, which will come in with no backgrounds as well. So yeah, it might depend on the image. You may have got unlucky and the ones you found were actually just a white background. But we've got other tools as well. So
I've put a lot in and I've never been able to get it to come up without the background. So perhaps there is something I'm missing. Yep.
Yeah, well, what we can look at maybe in another session as well as the some of the, I think we talked about the AI toolkit in a couple of these sessions. One of the tools in there is a background remover. So if you find an image that just has that white background, you should be able to then just send it through that and it should be ready to go. So it's an extra step, but same as if you'd found an image anywhere with the background. So that's something we can definitely, I might put that on the list for another session for sure.
Okay, thanks.
We'll have a look at that. All good. So yeah, outside of that little panel there, I'll go into the template library and stuff in a second, but I just wanted to show you a couple of other places where it will use the asset library for these things. So stock assets and things like that. Obviously, if I go to insert an image, one of the options is stock image library. That will often open the actual old stock folder library within Lectora. Whereas if you're looking for the actual assets, you go through the process I just did then. They have their own separate section, again, like I mentioned, for the characters section, which is the cutout people. Again, it'll open up that panel. So if I bring this open, again, you don't have to go looking for that site. You don't have to go looking through it there. It actually brings it up straight here for you. So it's a separate section of the asset library. So you know you're looking for characters, you go in here and you can search for either a specific person that you like from those characters, which they'll often have them across different industries as well, the same sort of actor or figure, I guess. Even if they're illustrated as well, you can find the illustrated options. The characters themselves have a lot of different categories, whether it's, again, type of industry or even the style. Once you go further down, I always laugh that they've got a whole section that is just hands. If you're ever wanting to use those, they've got those hands that are pretty handy. And yeah, different types of things depending on what you want. So you can really break it down, like different sort of demographics, different sort of styles of things, categories. Again, obviously, things might be more relevant with either business or industrial, depending on your industry and what you're working on. Otherwise, yeah, they have the actual actors here. So you can go into, say, Milo, for example. It'll show everything Milo's done. You can then filter that and sort it out. He might be just in casual clothes here, and further down, he may be wearing a suit. And there's just tons and tons of even each character. So these guys have probably had a whole couple of days in a room getting photos taken of them for each one. But there's tons of those that you can use as well. Really easy to get to the characters there. Similar sort of thing as being a separate section is the icons. So if you pop this little section open here, again, it'll open up my little side panel. And this is particularly, so just specifically for icons. So they're always illustrated. They're always going to come out as some kind of vector file. They tend to like the SVGs now that's supported in Lectora. So you can drag those in. They're fully scalable vectors, as well as being fully editable. So if you've got someone who's got things like Illustrator or some other similar tool, you can pull them out and make edits to them outside of just changing colors and things like that as well. So if something's almost what you want and you want to just remove some lines and you've got designers that can play around with that stuff, you can, but otherwise there's a huge broad range of stuff that you want to work through. So if I just pick something random here, let's go maps. It'll break it down into all different styles and you can start to filter that as well. So these are just mainly for icons. You've got standard sort of general stuff people all recognize. If you want a more vague thing, everyone knows that's a little map symbol, even though I think it's specifically for Google Maps, but that little teardrop thing's always associated with maps and stuff like that. So icons are really handy there. They're also really good style-wise. If you find, say, for example, you need this icon for a map, you just maybe have a dot point about maps or a section about maps or something. If you then got another couple different sections that you want to apply your own icon to, they can often find a similar style as well. So you can search for those sort of styles depending on what it is. If I pop into one of these, it'll show you, again, whether you want the PNG image, so that'll be just an image file but with a transparent background. What you're usually looking for is that little checkerboard in the background to show if it's a PNG. And the vector file, again, is, again, able to be edited within something like Illustrator, but also within Lectora, it will scale indefinitely. It'll never go pixely or blur or anything, whether it's 10 pixels wide or 10,000 pixels wide. You can make them as big as you want. Obviously, for icons, you're generally going to keep them a bit smaller, but you are free to edit those and tweak them around as well. With any of these as well, like I said, you've got that little sort of style there. So you can use that as keywords if you're wanting a certain style. You can add it at the end and search for maps with that style on there, or maybe you want the next one to be something else. You pop that style tag on there and you'll find similar types of things that you want as well. It's always good to have those sort of matching.
I just have one quick question, particularly with icons. So if you're wanting to use them across multiple pages, is there a way to do that directly from here, or you just have to add them to the other pages once you've downloaded it? If
you've already got it on one page, you can just copy and paste it and it'll keep that same asset, so it won't make a new asset in the background in the folder, particularly for things like icons and stuff. So you can obviously copy and paste them from different pages. If you do come in and grab it again from the same screen, I think it'll add it as a second one, so you're probably better off actually copying it from another screen.
So there's no way to just from here put it onto separate screens, it's just a copy paste?
Yeah, you drag it on here, and then if it's something that needs to be visible on multiple screens, you can make use of Lectora's like inheritance or something. If it's something that's sitting there for every page in a certain chapter, for example, you can have that sitting at that top level. Let me throw something in and show you that as an example. Say this one, just to make sure I'm understanding the question. So yeah, say for example, I have this as a little icon that's indicating that this is the chapter about navigation or something like that. I may have it just specifically on this wireframe page if I want, but if I want every page within this chapter, I haven't actually got chapters set up, but I'll show you the example anyway. If I set this at a higher level, so I've got it sort of more global now, that's going to automatically sit on the same spot on all of these pages. Oh, I've got some stuff in the way, but does that make sense? In the background there, I'll fix these up when I come back. But yeah, that sort of example where, like you said, maybe you have a menu at the start with 5 sections. Each section has its own little icon for the button, and when you go in there, that sits somewhere on the page, so you know that's the section you're in. That'd just be to do with setting up that inheritance with Lectora rather than popping it onto each individual page. Move it back down here. It's going to sit only on my page here versus popping up on all the other pages. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Good. Yeah, so just that example, now I've got one on here. Like I said, I can keep scaling that. It's going to stay crisp no matter what I do. I won't go too crazy with it, but yeah, you're not going to get that blurry lines or anything like that as long as you sort of play around with it there. With my icon. So that's a whole sort of section there for icons. Most of those sections, like I said, they've got their own little spot there. I will now look at the things to do with templates and some of those other assets as well. So this is a sort of separate little section on its own. That open. So outside of adding individual elements into pages, here's where we can look at different things like either an entire course sort of structure and start, which I mentioned. Normally that's something you do at the start of the course. You can apply that over the top in a place like this if you want. So course starters are like they're fully fledged. It's got a theme. It's got actual page examples just with dummy content, and you can take parts from different items as well. So you might see a page in one of these that you really like. You can copy that out into another course if you want to as well. This is what I really want to look at here is the wireframe templates. So these are fully set up pages with all the elements in them. So images, text, actions, all your functionality and interactions all set up. And it's there set up in a way where you can then easily tweak that as well. So let's, for example, grab, I think it's a good one. So click and reveal, pretty standard sort of thing that you normally will add to a course. It's often hard to find ways to make that a little bit more unique or a little bit different, or even if you're setting up from scratch, sometimes that's the hardest part. further on in the course, you may have that same type of page repeated, but getting it in there the first time can be tricky sometimes. So 3 panel, click to reveal. I've got those sort of little buttons there. A couple of different options when using these wireframes. You can either download it as its own little file, like a template. That'll actually pull it out as a file to work with. Whereas if you add it in as a library object, it's going to just add it into the course where I am now. Now this exists as its own entire page. So if I click on download here, actually go, yeah. So what it's done in the background here, you can see a little tag came up saying added to project. I'll close this down. It's actually made a whole new page for me with this content in it. So this is a fully set up page. Every single thing here is a separate item. So you've got text. It can look a bit scary here, but don't worry too much. I'll show you what's there. You've got text, you've got different images, you've got your buttons all set up. These are all set up with different styles as well. So if I go up to my hover effects, you can see it's got some hover effect there. If I just preview this page without going any further, without me doing anything, I've just added this in completely. It's got little hover effects here. If I click on each of these, essentially it comes up with a bit of text for that item and a new image. The image is the same in this case, but it's set up for you to replace those so that you can have your own. So basically it's a little clickable asset object item thing. So you can work through there that if you just wanted content here and you had the images you wanted to swap out, you basically have that page already done. If I jump back out here, it gives you a couple of tips on how to work through it. You just sort of need to know what you're looking for. So it'll explain where things are, so what the different groups are. So for example, the different content for each tab, they call these tabs, is found in each of those little groups. So if I look over on the side here, there's one called Content Tab 1. So that's the image and the text for my first content option. So if I pop that open as well, you can see all it is a heading here, a little bit of text there, and whatever this image is. So if I want to replace this image with another one, I can right click and either edit the one that's there. I can just drag a new image into this place as well. So this is where I might want to use that asset library. I can drag a new image in and swap it out. Let's see if I can quickly do that. Since I already had it loaded, I won't do all 4, but I'll show you an example. Let's go stock images, pick something quickly. Let's go, it's a bit scary looking, but I'll grab something like that. And I'll just grab the smaller version there. I can resize it if I need to. Because I had that other image selected on the left as well, I close this back down. It's actually added it into the group because that's where I was sort of clicking already. If I want to then just line this up with where my other one is, my handy little guides that are helping me straighten things up there. I don't worry too much if it's going to be a different size, but just to get that in there, I can remove the placeholder, delete that, and then I've now got that as my specific spot for that one. So if I preview this again, content 1, that's my own little image there. I can do the same for all 4 and obviously have my own image in the background. Same thing for the text. You can really quickly and easily edit the text. Outside of that, you can also go as far as changing the fonts, the colors, anything you want there as well. This button, for example, if I don't want that to look that way, if it doesn't fit with my theme, these are made to fit within the themes that we're using. So this little morning, whatever this theme is called with the green and the purple, sits in the background. If I want to try and match some of the styles of that, I can do that as well. So let me, where am I? Color. Let me change this button at least to look more like this sort of style. I can then go in, maybe change the hover effect the same way. They're going to let me do my eyedropper back out here. Yep, I'll grab the purple as well. It's going to be that silly thing. Depending on which one I'm using, it'll remember the colors I've got there. Back in here. Something like that. I'll ignore the other 2 for now, but click OK. So now I've now styled that button to match the theme that I'm already working in. And from there, I think in the last session, we did talk about the Style Painter, which makes things like this really easy. If I click on Style Painter, I can then do the same for my other buttons, and it's going to hit all of those different states as well, rather than just setting the single button color. So now I've stylized that as well. I can change some other elements, but essentially there's these quick little steps I can do to get it to suit the theme that I'm already sitting in as well. Otherwise, that's a completely sort of fully set up page. You can do the same sort of thing later on if I decide to add a 5th object. There's a couple of little variables and a couple of little spots I would need to work with to fix that up, but it's not really that much hard work as long as you're copying everything that you need. So for example, if I want to make a 5th item, I think the easiest way without I won't go right into the variables. But the easiest way is to make sure I'm selecting, say, button 4, for example. That's that whole group and everything involved with that. And the content group, which is everything involved with that as well. I can then copy those. I'm just using my keyboard here, so Control C, Control V to pop it down. I've now got a new version. More for my sort of mindset, I rename things just so I know what's going on. I'll add a 5 on this one. And add a 5 on this one. And then there may be a couple of other actions and things I need to play with just to manage when each one hides or shows. You can usually pretty quickly find where some of those are. So for example, I need to hide each of the elements. There's only 4 of those. I'll copy and paste that as well and make a 5th. I just need to retarget that as well. So depending on the complexity of the page, you can pretty easily add or adjust those. I'll add that to a number 5. And then all I really need to do is make sure that that's moving that down as well. So number 5. Oops, I need to make sure I'm selecting that one. Number 5 here is the button. I'm just using my keyboard to, well, it's not gonna let me use my keyboard. I use my mouse. Drag it down, like number 5. I do probably need to also change the on-screen part, but now I've got a 5th object as well. And I've just basically added that in. Removing them's even easier. I can just go through and delete the 4th one or the 5th one or whatever else it needs to be. But you can pretty quickly tweak these if you find one that's the right structure you want. You want to go through and fiddle around with those as well. But again, these wireframes are really handy for these types of pages. This is probably a more complex type of page, but they've got heaps of different options in there depending on what you want to set up. Some of them are just all fully set up and you're just changing images. Other ones like this are, like I said, you may want to tweak how many options are there, different elements and things like that, but they are set up for you to pretty easily reuse and set up from the start as well. Hopefully they are making sense. Any questions on anything else with those? Most of the sense. Cool. Yeah, so little fiddly things like that. And of course, now that I've done this, I can then rinse and repeat this for another page if I want to. If I have another page further on in the course, which needs to be a similar structure with different elements, I've already done it once with the colors and everything. I can just copy this entire page out and then repeat it there and work through just changing each of the text and the other items as well, depending on what you want to do. So those are the wireframes. I'll just quickly scroll through the ones that are available there just to show you another idea of what was there. I want to go through into each one. Go view more. They really break it down into every different type of page you might want. So again, you can start to filter things like that. There's different types of scenarios, text entry, little menu options. Scrolling down through this is just everything. So it's not really sorted or organized. There's little flip card options. Shows you a little preview of what they look like as well. So that's a really good one. You can really quickly just change the little icon that goes with it, your text, and it's doing those little sort of flip cards. Any sort of actions and effects are already set up there for you. And they often tend to use these silhouette characters as well, just so that you can swap them out with whatever you want. You can put your own little image there, your own character, whatever you want to do as well. They're all different styles, depending on what you want to do. It's the sort of stuff that you've sort of worked through for a while to get a page set up like that in a course, and then obviously, yeah, it's already there for you. You're just changing the content out and you can repeat these as many times as you want. So all sorts of objects there that we can work with. That's pretty much it for wireframes. I just want to make sure that's there. At the very least, you can even look through these to get an example of a type of page you want to use. Even if you then go and have someone make it or you make it from scratch, you've seen, oh, this works good with having the image on this side and the menu on this side and whatever else ends up happening. So really good to get some examples out there. Yeah, okay. Hopefully that's all good for everyone. And like I said, I can go into more detail showing some of these other ones, how specifically to fully customize it if you wanted to see all the actions and everything, where to click. We can also have a look at that in another session if we want to. I'll jump back over here now. That's covered everything off there. Okay, so the next thing, sort of the other half of the session here, is to do with embedding external assets. So like I mentioned, there's a few things sort of sitting there within Lectora or within the Lectora family, the ELB family, that are set up with their own special button to add them in. So the same way like the asset library has these little extra buttons that you can click on, things like the Training Arcade, which is a game builder tool and platform that you may or may not already know about. We can show you some of that as well. That's got an option to embed one of those games within a Lectora course, just with pretty much with a click of a button as well. Same way for the VR tool. So I mentioned that a couple of times today already. Our CenarioVR tool, you can embed a 360 sort of activity within an existing course. And the benefit of those being already within the sort of ELB family is they've set them up with their own special insert option. They also set them up so that there's ways for them to communicate between the course and the activity. So for example, the training arcade game, you can actually, it'll make available for you a variable within the course that you can then see what the score was when they're finished, what their pass rate, all that sort of stuff. So you can actually have it communicate directly rather than just being something that pops up in the course and closes down. So if they pass the game, it moves them on to the next thing. It can replace the quiz in the course if you do it that way. If it's a CenarioVR thing, it's an activity that pops up. You can actually have it so that they have to have completed the activity for them to continue, and it's actually cross communication that way as well, which is really handy. I'll show you a couple of those. Outside of that, they've always, well, for a long time, they've had the option to embed other HTML-based objects and things. There's a few different things to play around with there, which I can show you, but we'll go through these sort of ELB family ones first. So we'll go back over here. I've got my Lectora. Okay, so I'll show you the steps for embedding these themselves, but I'll also pop some in already just so we can have an example. So first of all, the training arcade games. I moved all these over before, I'll pop them back. If I wanted to add one of these myself, I can go to my Insert tab, and I have a little game option here. So this little purple section is usually to do with all this stuff we're talking about now. So the games come up here. You need to have an account with these games already. So I think some of you already have that as included with your Lectora. Some of you may get it later on. It's also something you can obviously purchase and add on, but because it's part of that sort of section, you can add it in there. So if you have that account tied into your Lectora, you've got it all linked together. I can pop into my game section here. Gives me a little window, and based on my login, it'll then show me available games that I've got there. So if you've had your own one, if you created different types of games, you've got your trivia game, maybe you've made 10 different versions of it as different quizzes, you'd have that accessible for you in your list. So for example, I choose my trivia one here. I won't click into it because it'll go through the next step. Past that, it'll show you a little preview, and that's what's going to be embedded onto your page for you. And so that's, yeah, just shows you which one it is there. If I close that down, that's what I've already got sitting here. So within this page in Lectora already, if I go into, I'll just preview here. You do have to do the browser preview for these examples because they're embedding from elsewhere. But basically, this is just sitting within my Lectora course. I've got my back and next buttons, and I can interact with the game itself. So I can click into here. You may hear some little sound effects as well. I'll mute it if it gets a bit too long. Without going into too much detail on these games, there's a couple of different things you can do as far as setting up leaderboards, logins. You can turn all that off if you need to. Gives you a little tutorial, which again, you can also choose to have or not have. That's already too loud for me. I'll let it play a little bit and then I'll mute it. Just little sound effects. Let me mute that side. Oh, no, I lost my window. Grab it back up here. So this trivia type game is essentially like a more fun and interactive version of a quiz. So you can set up your questions, you can set up your answers, all that sort of stuff. Got a little timer here. I've just muted the site, but it'll actually do a bit of a like when you're running out of time as well. You just grab something here, pick an answer. Gives you nice little feedback. It's very visual, very nice looking. You can change and tweak some of the elements, so colors and backgrounds and things. But at the very least, it can just simply replace your quiz at the end of a course with one of these games, and it still communicates back to the course. Okay, so I won't go through all 19 whatever questions there are here. I'll show up another one. Different types of questions, of course. Oh, I'll just go on. One of the days in these demos, I'll actually get the right answers, but I won't go through all of these. Let me just bring that menu back up as well that came up there. So at any point you can ping this up so you can jump out of it. The different settings you can play. I can actually turn the sound off within here, so that's handy to know for later. And at the end they get their little leaderboard if you've got that turned on as well. So all of that happens within the game sort of setup itself, but also it's sitting within this Lectora course. So if I close that back down, because I've added this into my course, again, this is its own little preset. So it's got a little game symbol, has its own little icon here. What that does, if I go over to my variables in my course, I'll under the reserved variables. So these are variables that are brought in with other types of objects or any variable that's already in the course. So standard things like your page titles and all that sort of stuff lives there. But because I've added this subscriber demo workplace, whatever the game's called, it has its own set of variables to do with that as well. So these range from duration, how long the user spent in the game, what their point score was at the end, what their result was. So if you've got a pass mark or a failed completed assigned to it, which was all in the game setup itself, that'll pass that data across in a variable, as well as the actual score. So the score may be different from the points, but depending on how you've set it up. And that means you can have that tied directly to the Lectora course. So their score in the game is their score in the course, if you want it to just simply, again, replace the quiz. Or if it's an activity to go throughout the course, you may have something where they have to have got a certain amount of points to continue, and they can go in and they can try it again and sort of pass the game to get through that chapter, or vice versa. If you don't want to have it tied to a set score locked in, it may be something they just have to try again until they get enough to pass through that section as well. It's a really good thing to sort of embed those and yeah, cross communicate, which is always handy. Jump back out of there. Any questions on the game stuff without going into too much detail on the games themselves, which we can do in another session? Okay with that? Cool. So moving on as well, similar sort of thing. We have the same thing for the CenarioVR, so our 360 VR tool. Move this back over in the middle again. Again, it's got its own little special insert option. This one's a little bit different. If you pop this open, it just needs a published file from your CenarioVR. So again, if you've had someone make one for you as a quick activity, you don't have to have that linked to your account. You can have that type of file made and embedded as well. So for example, we can make things like that with our development sort of stuff as well. If you're only needing it as a once-off, that can be embedded into your course as well. So you publish out the zip file, and this is what I've done in the background here. And what that does is, again, the same sort of thing. If I preview my page, okay, loads up for a second, and that's now sort of a little live 360 interaction within my course as well. So it's just our hospital demo example that we use. Click around through here. Go in through a different section. I'll just show a couple of parts of this for you. This is its own little sort of induction. So you can make any kind of activity. It could just be a single page activity. It could be the main point of the course, and you've just made that Lectora sort of intro and outro around it. Or maybe each chapter has its own little mini activity based on the content as well. So this is depending on what we want to do. In this example, I just have to click on a certain amount of things within the project. Lots of fun stuff you can do in VR. We can move little objects around. 3D things you can play around with as well. I won't go right into the details there, but once that's completed, that'll actually complete it in the course as well. And the same sort of thing, if I jump back out here, back in my tools and my variables, you would have seen this before when I opened this up, but there's the same thing there for the CenarioVR scenario options as well. So this, again, ranges from duration, the result, and the score if you've applied those. So maybe it depends on how long they spent in there before something else happens. It may be not something that they have to actually pass, but they need to have sort of been in there long enough. If there's an actual score related, obviously that's important. And again, maybe the quiz is a VR quiz at the end, or it's some kind of activity that needs to be passed. You can then have that variable communicate that information across, depending on what you want to do there as well. So the main thing there is obviously, yeah, you could pull in VR stuff from somewhere else and pop it in, but you won't have these variables to sort of play around with as easily as you do with the Lectora based stuff. So we can pop those around. And then, yeah, they're fairly easy to sit in there. Both of these examples as well, they're not sitting within the course itself. They're sitting on whatever the platform is that they've come from. So they're not adding a bunch of size or space onto the course. They're not being downloaded unless you're doing it offline in some way. So you can have really sort of robust activities sitting within there, but they're embedded. They're not actually sitting in the course as well, taking up sort of space in the LMS or whatever else it's doing as well. That was pretty much the same as the games one, but yeah, was there any other questions on the VR stuff? That's okay. Well, good. So outside of that, let me quickly jump back over here. So just in general, outside of embedding the stuff that's within the ELB sort of suite, you can embed any external HTML objects. So the most common way I've seen that is people embedding video So there is an object in Lectora called a web window, which lets you basically assign a link or something to this little window, and that pops it up on the screen. So if you don't want to have a 3 gig video file sitting within your course and you've got that hosted in YouTube or Vimeo or somewhere else, there's a way to then just embed that so it streams it into the course instead. Again, really handy for that sort of space saving if they're really heavy videos, things like that. Or if you don't have them as an actual file and they are just sort of stream based, it's a bit easier for you. The other benefit of that is that if they change or they need to change, you can simply change the link and you're not having to upload or redo or re-add a video. It's just changing where it's pointing to. So it gives you a bit of more control over editing those as well. If there's a video that you know will probably need to be updated at some point, you can update the actual source video itself and it'll point it back into the course for you as well. But the web window, which I'll show you in a second, can also embed any other HTML-based thing. So before they actually added this actual button for the VR tool, that's how we used to embed the VR objects within Lectora as well. And that could be even just like a website link or any other thing it can embed into the screen. So I'll show you what that looks like quickly. Pop that back over here. So this one, I think it didn't work when I quickly tested it, unfortunately, but this was a streaming video from Microsoft Stream. So embedding videos, if I go into insert, you've got options already sort of baked in if it's YouTube or Vimeo, because those are probably the two most common. So you don't have to muck around with these web windows for those. They've got their own little presets as well. If you do a video here and you choose to add a streaming type video, it'll then just ask you for the URL for that. So if you've got a stream link, a lot of people using Microsoft Stream now, it's just sort of embedded. A lot of these Teams videos and things like that sit there. That can just be embedded in here and that works the way that it needs to work through that as well. Back before Vimeo was supported, this was the same way to do that, but now it's got its own special button as well for that. Outside of that, if it's not particularly a video, what you would do is add a web window, which sits up here. I'll actually just remove this one because it wasn't working, but popped in a web window and it's got a range of sort of what you're adding in. So whether or not it's any sort of online link, again, if it's a video link from somewhere else, or if it's, I think in the project training we used to do, we do a Google Maps location as an option, and it just embeds that on the screen as an actual interactive object. The other thing there is if you're embedding local web-based content, so that's just any other HTML-based thing that's been created in something else. So someone may have made like a little game or an activity or something with hard coding without one of these tools or within a tool that's separate from Lectora. If you've got the file of that pulled out, you can actually embed it in there using that. And all that needs is the actual file itself. So just to use the VR as an example, if I go local web-based content, it's just going to ask me to upload that zip. That same process I did for the VR tool, I could do the same thing by clicking one of those and adding them in. And it'll just sit that within the screen. And when that's published out, that obviously, if it's local, will sit within the course, whereas if it's a link-based object, that's sitting somewhere else that's hosted as well. But yeah, these examples they've got there aren't super relevant, but you can use examples of those. You can also embed another page from the course onto a specific page. So it could be a particular page you've set up as a big sort of scrolling type thing, but you want that to sit on a normal page and it's able to be viewed through there. Sort of like the same way you would add a pop-up onto a screen, you can add a little sort of separate page onto part of the screen as well. But pretty much anything that you want to embed here. I've even had people want to embed a Rise course at the end of a Lectora course for whatever reason. That's possible if you've got the links and you've got the published stuff that you need. So yeah, little things like that, obviously, depending on what type of interaction you're doing and what other tools you're using, but it's always there available for you. There's little things depending on how that's being added. If it's added in from a link or a file, it should have everything it needs. It'll drag it in there. Whereas if it's a link, it usually all it asks for is the link, and it should just work directly from there as well. The only thing you have to worry about with that sort of stuff is permissions as well. So for example, the Microsoft Stream option that's come up again, we did a course for a few people where they needed the stream links because that's where their videos lived, and there may sometimes have been different sort of ways to tweak that. So outside of using just a direct web window, if you need a bit more control over what it's trying to do with that content, you can also do an HTML extension which does the similar thing. It's just less of a preset. So I won't go into full details of that. So that's more for adding your own sort of coding, which can also embed content if you know what you're doing with the codes as well. But web windows are the safer option if you know it's going to work there, depending on what you want to do. So yeah, it's a little bit more complicated there depending on what you're trying to add, but obviously the more of these little preset ones that they have, the better, especially for things like video. So yeah, YouTube and Vimeo being added was really handy once you could pop those in. And again, saves you space in the course if you need to, if you know you've got that stuff there, as well as having that as a separate source of that content, so that can be changed rather than having to change it in the course, which is the main benefit there as well. I think that was it for the embedding stuff. Did anybody have questions on that last little bit? I don't know if there's anyone tried to do things like that before that didn't work, or have something that you may want to use that for that makes sense. I can clarify if it's is or isn't making sense. That sounds good to everyone. Cool. Come back over here. That was pretty much it for the set prepared stuff. So again, obviously outside of any questions throughout that we had, were there any other questions on the stuff we covered today, or even something unrelated? We usually go to about 11:30, so we've got more time to cover specific things if anyone had. And as I said, when we send our invites out, we'll try to push more for that if people have any current issues they're working on. It may be something that's a bit more than just a quick call. It's something we can actually go through with people. And yeah, definitely don't be worried to tell people you've got an issue, because everyone's got all sorts of problems with stuff depending on what you're working on. So I'll open it up from there. Did anyone have any questions or current dramas that we need to have a look at? We're all good. Okay, you can use the chat as well if you need to, but otherwise, move that over there as well. Outside of that, if you think of anything separate to the session, even if we hang up now and you think of it straight away, you can email it straight through and we can have a look if it's a current issue. We're always happy to have more topics for other sessions. As I mentioned, I'll have a look at that. The PNG stuff, we'll note that down as a possible topic for future as well. But anything you think, if you've been having trouble with it, even if it's something you had trouble with and you then fixed, it's something we can cover so we can help other people, or even add some more detail to something if you had fixed it in the past. There may be other elements that you haven't realized, or maybe some other application that we don't know about.
Yeah. So as an example, Amanda, your question earlier with those icons or images on multiple pages, maybe that didn't fully answer the question you're after. Please get in contact with us, because maybe when Will works it around, he goes, oh, actually, there's something in here that we should share with everyone. Maybe it's adding variables into something that you're after, or any of those sorts of issues to help other people. And yes, please always send through any issues, and we can work through them and share them with people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and definitely if it's a topic that we've covered and you had other questions later, always happy to repeat a topic if there's more to add. We'll go through the basics that we already did, but definitely happy to, if there's an element that we didn't think of, or there's some question involving that didn't come up, happy to cover it again or cover it in more detail, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going through variables at some stage. I don't really understand how and when you use them, so that'll be good to go through that. Yeah, definitely
make note of that as a future topic for sure. Maybe on the next one.
Maybe actually the next one we might focus on variables. Variables is a complex one for people. So maybe it's time we bring that one back in.
Yep, do definitely probably one of the more powerful things that you can do. But obviously you need to know how to do it properly. So something we'd happy to cover.
Thank you.
All good. If no one else had any other questions, I'm happy to.
Yeah, Will, I'm just wondering here. This is the first video I've done, but how to get access to previous ones you've done?
Yeah, so that's what I mentioned at the start. We're sort of working through what we want to do with those. We've definitely we've got links of the previous recordings, and we're sort of tending to, if someone had signed up but missed it, we were sending those out. But we're working on getting them into more of a one place, like a hub, where you can go back to and check that. So watch this space. We'll definitely note that it's been asked, and we'll anyone who has attended a session, will make sure that's accessible for you. And then obviously, we want people on the sessions as well for questions and things like that. But for any past ones, we're happy to have those provided. So we can give you a direct link to any of them now. But we're working on having that all in one place.
Thank you.
No problem. Oh, good. No, thanks for your time, guys. Hopefully, I'll see some of you on the next one, or if you have anyone else who you think would be interested in joining these as well, any colleagues that may get something out of it, definitely let them know. I think we send it out to everyone we've got on our list, but yeah, always happy to add more people to the list. All good.
Thanks
All
for
right.
the session, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Cheers. See you on the next one.
Thanks. Bye.